Picture this. A young man walks into a nightclub in Las Vegas. The bass throbs through marble floors. Crystal chandeliers catch the strobe lights, casting rainbows across bottles of champagne that cost more than a car. The air smells of expensive cologne and ambition. 23 bottles of Cristal appear at Lindsay Lohan's table, not ordered, just appearing, like magic. The bill arrives, $160,000. The young man doesn't even glance at it. He waves his hand, and it disappears. Who is this man? The lights are low. The music is loud. In the corner, celebrities lean in to hear him speak. He's soft-spoken, almost shy. His glasses are thick-rimmed and slightly too large for his face. He's pudgy, unremarkable. You might pass him on the street and never look twice. But tonight everyone is looking. His name is Jho Low. Remember it. Carve it into your memory. Tattoo it on your consciousness. Because in a few short years, this man will orchestrate one of the most audacious financial heists in human history. He will steal $4.5 billion, not billion, from a sovereign nation. He will party with Leonardo DiCaprio. He will date Miranda Kerr. He will produce Hollywood blockbusters. He will fund a movie about a fraudster while being the biggest fraudster of all. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. He will own a super yacht longer than a football field. And then, he will vanish. Like smoke. Like a ghost. Like he was never there at all. But the money, oh, the money will be very, very real. And very, very gone. Malaysia, 2009. The monsoon season approaches. Rain clouds gather over Kuala Lumpur, dark and heavy with promise. The Petronas Twin Towers pierce the sky, symbols of a nation's ambition, of a people's dreams. A nation stands at a crossroads. Najib Razak has just become Prime Minister. He carries the weight of his lineage. His father was Prime Minister. His uncle was Prime Minister. The Razak name means something in Malaysia. It means power. It means legacy. It means responsibility. The global financial crisis still smolders in the ruins of Lehman Brothers, in the foreclosed homes of America, in the shattered dreams of millions. Malaysia weathered the storm better than most, but the people are nervous. They want security. They want progress. They want their children to have futures. Najib knows this. He feels it in every handshake, every campaign rally, every prayer at the mosque. So he announces the creation of 1MDB, One Malaysia Development Berhad, a sovereign wealth fund. The promise is simple, elegant, beautiful. Invest Malaysia's money wisely, build infrastructure, create jobs, lift the people. Take the nation's wealth and multiply it. Make Malaysia great. The press conference is held in a gleaming office building. Najib stands at a podium, cameras flashing. He speaks of vision, of unity, of the one Malaysia, all races, all religions, all people together. The crowd applauds. But in the shadows, someone is watching. Someone is calculating. Someone sees not a fund for the people, but a vault waiting to be cracked. A piggy bank the size of a nation. A score so massive it makes bank robberies look like shoplifting candy. Low Taik Jho Low, 27 years old. A Malaysian businessman with no credentials, no official position, no government authority. He wears thick-rimmed glasses. He speaks softly, almost apologetically. His handshake is clammy. His smile is practiced. You might meet him at a party and forget his name within minutes. But think about this for a moment. Think about it really hard, because this is where the story becomes terrifying. How does an ordinary man become extraordinary? How does someone with no official position, no government title, no banking license, no regulatory authority, gain access to billions of dollars belonging to an entire nation? The answer is simpler than you think, and more chilling. Connections. Just connections. Rewind to 2001. Low is 17 years old, fresh off the plane at Harrow School in London. the same institution that educated Winston Churchill. The hallways smell of old wood and privilege. The portraits on the walls are of prime ministers, of generals, of men who shaped empires. Low is not like the other boys. He doesn't come from old money. His father is a businessman in Penang, successful but not spectacular. In a school full of princes and oligarchs' sons, Low should be invisible. But he's not. He throws parties, small at first, then increasingly elaborate. He learns that in elite circles, the person who controls the fun controls the network. He doesn't excel academically. His grades are mediocre at best. He doesn't play rugby or cricket. He's not athletic, not charismatic in the traditional sense. But he knows how to make people feel important. He knows how to remember names. He knows how to laugh at jokes and make introductions. He collects contacts like a museum collects art, carefully, obsessively, with an eye toward value. One name in particular catches his attention: Riza Aziz, stepson of Najib Razak. Do you see it now? The web beginning to form? The spider spinning its first threads? This friendship, this calculated, strategic friendship, will become the skeleton key that unlocks an entire nation's treasury. But that comes later. They become friends, brothers almost. Low is generous with Riza, paying for dinners, arranging trips, always picking up the tab. He's investing, planting seeds, building bridges to a future he can already see in his mind's eye. But it doesn't stop there. Low moves to the Wharton School in Pennsylvania, another elite institution, another network to infiltrate. The campus smells of autumn leaves and ambition. Students walk between classes discussing leveraged buyouts, discussing hedge funds, discussing the future as if it's a commodity to be traded. Low throws more parties, lavish ones. He rents expensive cars. He books tables at exclusive restaurants. He meets the sons of Middle Eastern royalty, princes from Kuwait, from Abu Dhabi, from Saudi Arabia. These connections will later provide the perfect cover story, the perfect lie that everyone will want to believe. More on that shortly. He befriends the children of Southeast Asian billionaires. Each connection is a thread. Each friendship is a pathway. He is building something, a facade, an illusion so elaborate, so convincing, that eventually people will believe it without question. By the time he returns to Malaysia in his mid-20s, he carries with him an aura of legitimacy that glows like radiation. He drops names casually. When I was in Abu Dhabi with the prince, or my friend in the Saudi royal family mentioned. People begin to believe he is someone important, someone connected, someone who knows people who know things. But is he? Or is he simply the world's most audacious liar? A confidence man so skilled that even he might believe his own lies. The line between the two grows thinner every day. And maybe that's the point. Maybe in the world of high finance there is no line at all. Maybe belief creates reality. Maybe if enough people think you're powerful, you become powerful. 2009. The pieces align like stars in a dark constellation, like dice landing all sixes, like destiny revealing itself. He whispers in the right ears. He suggests ideas to Riza, who mentions them to his stepfather. He proposes partnerships. He speaks the language of international finance, joint ventures, strategic initiatives, sovereign investment vehicles. Words that sound important even if they mean nothing. Somehow, he becomes an advisor to 1MDB, unofficially. No title, no salary, no nameplate, no business cards, no official anything. Just access. Think about that. A 27-year-old with no credentials, no official role, no regulatory approval, no background check, gaining access to a sovereign wealth fund worth billions. What happens next will seem impossible. It will seem like fiction, but every word is true. It starts with one deal, one transaction, one audacious theft. The first deal comes quickly. 1MDB partners with Petro-Saudi International. $1.8 billion. The money flows from Malaysia to a joint venture account. Everything appears normal. But here's what nobody knows yet. The secret that will take years to uncover. Within hours, $700 million disappears. Not slowly, not over time. In hours. It moves through a dizzying network of shell companies, Seychelles, Switzerland, Singapore. And where does it end up? In his pocket. Accounts he controls. His world. The theft has begun. The heist is underway. Opening act. Already more than most see in 100 lifetimes. But it's not enough. It will never be enough. Because he doesn't want to be rich. Being rich is boring. Being rich is for people without imagination. He wants to be a god. 2010, New York City. The city that never sleeps, that never stops, that never asks questions if you have enough money. Imagine walking into a penthouse apartment at the Time Warner Center, overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the Manhattan skyline. The Empire State Building lit up like a beacon, the park spreading out below like a carpet of green. Inside, the apartment smells of leather and expensive flowers. The furniture is modern, minimalist, each piece costing more than a sedan. This is Low's world now. He rents this apartment for $100,000 per month. Not to live in full-time. He has other places, other cities, other identities. But to have, to own, in the way that temporary ownership counts in his world. To be able to say, "My New York apartment," when talking to celebrities and models. He throws parties that become legendary. Not just among his friends, but in the gossip columns, in the tabloids, in the whispered conversations of publicists and agents. Paris Hilton is here, dancing in the living room. Leonardo DiCaprio holds court by the window. Jamie Foxx laughs at someone's joke. Models lean against the bar, drinking expensive champagne. The parties last until dawn, until the sun rises over the East River and turns the windows gold, until everyone is exhausted and exhilarated and talking about when the next one will be. But here's the question that should haunt you. Here's the question that should keep you awake at night, staring at your ceiling, wondering about the nature of evil. Where is the money coming from? The celebrities don't ask. The models don't ask. The hangers-on and the agents and the publicists don't ask. Because the answer might require them to do something uncomfortable. The answer might require them to walk away. And nobody wants to walk away from paradise. The answer, of course, is 1MDB, Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund. Money meant for schools in Kuala Lumpur, for hospitals in Penang, for roads in Sarawak, for the Malaysian people, for teachers and nurses and construction workers and children who dream of going to university someday. Instead, it's buying bottles of crystal at a Vegas nightclub. It's paying for penthouses Low will visit 3 times. It's funding a lifestyle so excessive, so absurd, that it seems like satire. Low gambles in Las Vegas casinos, losing $25 million in sessions that blur together into one long, surreal nightmare of bad decisions and worse luck. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't pause. He just orders more chips, as if money is infinite, as if consequences don't exist. He buys a $35 million private jet, a Bombardier Global 5000 customized with gold-plated fixtures and Italian leather seats. He buys a $100 million yacht, then decides it's not big enough and buys another. He collects Picasso paintings, a Monet, a Van Gogh. He hangs them on walls he rarely sees, in homes he barely visits. And the celebrities? They love him. Why wouldn't they? He's generous to a fault. He showers them with gifts, expensive watches, private jet flights, introductions to other wealthy people. He never asks for anything in return except their presence, their company, their validation of his existence. Leonardo DiCaprio becomes a close friend. Low adores him, sees him as a symbol of everything he wants to be: cool, famous, respected, talented. So Low showers him with gifts: a Marlon Brando Oscar statuette, a Jean-Michel Basquiat painting worth millions, access to parties and women and experiences that feel like scenes from movies. For DiCaprio's birthday, Low doesn't just throw a party. He orchestrates an event that will be talked about for years. He flies hundreds of guests to Las Vegas on private jets. He books entire floors of luxury hotels. He brings in famous DJs. The party costs millions of dollars, just for one night, just to celebrate someone else's existence. What does DiCaprio know? What does anyone know? They know Low as a financier, an investor, an enigmatic Malaysian man with seemingly unlimited funds. They don't ask where it comes from. But somewhere, in the back rooms of banks, in the offices of compliance departments, in the cubicles of auditors, people are beginning to wonder. Numbers don't add up. Transfers don't make sense. A 20-something with no clear source of income is moving hundreds of millions of dollars. Red flags appear in computer systems. Alerts ping. Compliance officers frown at their screens. But they don't act. Not yet. Because the fees are too good. The commissions are too high. And maybe, just maybe, they tell themselves everything is legitimate. Everything is fine. Everything is definitely not fine. The theft continues. The schemes grow bolder, more elaborate, more breathtaking in their audacity. Low needs help. He can't do this alone. Moving billions requires infrastructure. Bankers, lawyers, accomplices who understand the system well enough to subvert it. So he recruits bankers from Goldman Sachs, the most prestigious investment bank in the world. The bank that survived the 2008 financial crisis. The bank whose name opens doors, whose blessing legitimizes deals. Men like Tim Leissner, a senior partner with silver hair and expensive suits. A man who went to Harvard, who speaks multiple languages, who has a wife and children and a home in Connecticut. A man who should know better. And Roger Ng, a managing director in Goldman's Malaysia office. Quiet, meticulous, the kind of banker who triple-checks his spreadsheets. These are not street criminals. These are not thugs or gangsters or desperate men with nothing to lose. These are men with MBAs from top schools, men with spotless reputations, men who coach their kids' soccer teams and attend charity galas and donate to political campaigns. But they see the opportunity, and the opportunity is enormous. Goldman Sachs underwrote 3 bond offerings for 1MDB, raising $6.5 billion, and earned nearly $600 million in fees. That's more than they made from almost any other client. The commissions are staggering, percentages so high they should raise immediate red flags. And so they look the other way. They facilitate the transfers. They create the bonds that allow billions to flow out of Malaysia and into accounts controlled by Low and his co-conspirators. They ask questions, yes, but only the questions that can be answered with lies that everyone agrees to pretend are true. In return, Low pays them. Leissner receives $200 million in kickbacks. Ng gets millions more. They buy mansions in London. They vacation in the south of France. They tell themselves this is just business. This is how the world works. This is the price of success. But is it? Or is it something darker? A Faustian bargain where greed devours conscience, where comfort kills morality, where everyone becomes complicit in something monstrous because nobody wants to be the person who walks away? Think about the calculations they must have made. The late-night conversations with themselves, staring at their reflections in bathroom mirrors. The rationalizations. Everyone does it. It's not technically illegal. I have a family to support. If I don't do it, someone else will. The things we tell ourselves to sleep at night, the lies that become truth through repetition. 2012. Low decides he wants to be a Hollywood producer. Remember when I told you he'd fund a movie about a fraudster while being the biggest fraudster of all? Well, here's where that irony becomes almost too perfect to believe. Think about the absurdity of that for a moment. Let it wash over you like cold water. A man with no film experience decides to produce movies. It's like a child playing dress-up, except the costume costs billions of dollars. He meets with Joey McFarland. Together, they form Red Granite Pictures. The name sounds legitimate, professional, like a real production company run by real professionals. Their first project, The Wolf of Wall Street, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. The irony is almost too perfect. Low provides $100 million of funding for the film. The film gets made. It's brilliant. It's nominated for 5 Academy Awards. Critics praise it. Audiences love it. Low is on set during filming, taking photos with Scorsese, with DiCaprio, with Margot Robbie. He's living the dream. He's a producer. He has a credit on a major Hollywood film. He attends the premiere in New York. He walks the red carpet. Photographers take his picture. He stands next to actual celebrities, and for a moment, for one brief shining moment, he is one of them. But here's what you need to understand. By now, Low has stolen over $3 billion. Money that belongs to the Malaysian people. Money that should be building infrastructure, funding education, providing health care. Think about the ordinary Malaysians for a moment. Think about the school teacher, the nurse, the construction worker. They don't know about Jho Low. They don't know that their nation's wealth is being spent on champagne in Vegas, on yachts in Monaco, on paintings hanging on walls in penthouses they'll never see. They just know that things are hard, that promises were made and broken, that something isn't right, even if they can't put their finger on exactly what. And Low? He's at an after-party in Hollywood, drinking champagne with movie stars, feeling like a king. But you know what they say about kings. Eventually, they all fall. 2013. London. Rain falls on grey streets. The sky is the color of slate. Claire Rucastle Brown sits in her office, staring at documents spread across her desk. For months, she's been receiving leaked documents, bank statements, emails, internal memos from 1MDB. At first, they didn't make sense, just fragments, puzzle pieces without a picture. But slowly, painstakingly, she's been fitting them together. And what she's discovering terrifies her. She sees money moving in ways that don't make sense. Shell companies with similar names. Transfers that serve no apparent business purpose. Billions flowing out of Malaysia and never coming back. She publishes her first exposé in early 2015. The article is detailed, carefully sourced, devastating. She names names. She follows the money. She connects Low to 1MDB, Najib to the missing funds. The Malaysian government's response is immediate and furious. They call her a liar, a troublemaker, a foreign agent trying to destabilize Malaysia. They threaten legal action. They block her website in Malaysia. But she doesn't stop. She can't stop. Because she knows she's right. She knows she's onto something massive. And she's not alone. In Malaysia, journalists at The Edge, a financial newspaper, are asking similar questions. They're careful, methodical. They know that investigating 1MDB is dangerous. Najib still controls the government. He has power. He has resources. He can make problems, and people, disappear. But they keep reporting. They publish articles raising questions about 1MDB's finances, about missing money, about suspicious transactions. The Edge gets suspended by the Malaysian government. The journalists face threats, subtle at first, then increasingly explicit. Phone calls in the middle of the night, cars following them home, warnings from anonymous sources to stop asking questions. But they don't stop, because some stories are too important to abandon. Some truths are too big to ignore. Slowly, painfully, like daylight creeping under a door, the truth begins to emerge. Think about how a secret this big stays hidden. Think about the machinery required, the people who have to be paid off or intimidated or convinced to look the other way, the systems that have to be subverted, the auditors who have to be distracted, the regulators who have to be satisfied with incomplete answers. It's a house of cards, massive, intricate, built over years. But houses of cards, no matter how carefully constructed, share one fatal flaw. Eventually, the wind blows. 2015. The pressure intensifies. The air grows thick with tension. The Wall Street Journal publishes a bombshell investigation. They've obtained documents showing that $681 million from 1MDB was deposited into Prime Minister Najib's personal bank accounts. Not into government accounts, not into 1MDB accounts, into Najib's personal bank accounts. Accounts he uses to pay his credit card bills and buy groceries. The number is staggering. $681 million. Most people can't even conceptualize that amount of money. The Malaysian government erupts in denials. The response is coordinated, rehearsed, desperate. Remember those Middle Eastern princes Low befriended at Wharton? Those carefully cultivated connections I mentioned earlier? This is where they become useful, not for actual business deals, but for creating the perfect cover story. Najib claims it was a donation from a Saudi royal, given out of gratitude for Malaysia's fight against terrorism. He says he returned most of it. He says it was all legitimate. His supporters rally around him. They attack the journalists. They question the timing. They suggest foreign conspiracy. But the evidence keeps mounting. The Wall Street Journal publishes more articles. Claire Rue-Castle Brown publishes more exposés. The Malaysian opposition grows bolder. Najib fights back. Investigators who probe too deeply are fired. The Attorney General who wants to press charges is replaced with someone more compliant. Government critics are harassed. Websites are blocked. The full power of the state is turned toward protecting one man. But globally, the walls are closing in. The U.S. Department of Justice launches an investigation. The Swiss authorities open their own inquiry. Singapore starts looking into banks that facilitated the transfers. International law enforcement begins coordinating, sharing documents, comparing notes, building cases. This is no longer just a Malaysian problem. This is international. This is massive. And Jho Low, he's still partying, still gambling, still buying yachts. But now he knows they're coming. You can see it in photos from this time. His smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. He looks over his shoulder more. He surrounds himself with bodyguards. The paranoia is setting in. Because when you steal $4.5 billion, eventually someone notices. Eventually someone cares. Eventually someone decides that enough is enough. 2016. The United States Department of Justice files civil forfeiture complaints. The documents are hundreds of pages long. They detail everything: the penthouses, the jets, the paintings, the jewelry. DiCaprio's Picasso, the funding for The Wolf of Wall Street, a 300-foot super yacht, luxury homes in Beverly Hills, New York, and London. The list is staggering. It reads like the fever dream of a lottery winner with no impulse control and even less taste. But here's what chills you. Here's what should make your blood run cold. This isn't a lottery winner. This is stolen money. Money taken from 1MDB meant to improve the daily lives of ordinary Malaysians. Money that should have built hospitals where people could get cancer treatment, schools where children could learn, roads where families could travel safely. Instead, it bought a yacht called the Equanimity, a vessel so large, so expensive, so absurdly excessive that its very existence feels like an insult. Think about that name. Equanimity, calmness, composure. mental and emotional stability. The audacity is breathtaking. It's almost admirable in its shamelessness. Almost. Low goes into hiding. At first, he stays in luxury. He moves between China, Macau, Hong Kong, always one step ahead of the authorities. He still has money hidden in accounts they haven't found yet. He still has friends willing to harbor him, powerful people who owe him favors or fear what he might reveal. But the circle is shrinking. You can feel it tightening like a noose, like walls moving inward in some nightmare trap. His super yacht, the Equanimity, is seized by Indonesian authorities off the coast of Bali in 2018. 23 bottles of Cristal, $160,000. That's where this story started, remember? Low waving away that bill like it was nothing. Well, this yacht being towed away by armed officers, it cost $250 million. That's 1,162 nights of champagne with Lindsay Lohan. That's how far the magic trick had gone before it all came crashing down. Imagine that moment. Imagine owning a $250 million yacht, a floating palace with a helipad, a gym, a movie theater, and watching from afar as armed officers board it, as it's towed away, as something you thought was untouchable becomes evidence in a criminal investigation. The paintings are confiscated. The penthouses are frozen. The jet is grounded. Everything he bought with stolen money is being peeled away, layer by layer, like skin from a corpse. And the celebrities? The ones who drank his champagne and danced at his parties and accepted his gifts? They start distancing themselves. Lawyers release statements. My client had no knowledge. There was no reason to suspect. Any gifts have been returned. Leonardo DiCaprio surrenders the gifts Low gave him, the Picasso, the Basquiat painting, the Marlon Brando Oscar. He releases a statement saying he's cooperating with authorities, that he had no idea the money was stolen. And maybe that's true. Maybe he really didn't know. Maybe none of them knew. Or maybe they just didn't want to know. Think about the moral calculation there. Think about what it says about us, about human nature, about our capacity for willful blindness when confronted with something beautiful and terrible at the same time. We are all capable of this, aren't we? Of looking away, of telling ourselves comfortable lies, of accepting gifts without asking where they came from. The only difference between us and them is the size of the gift. Back in Malaysia, the political earthquake begins. For years, Najib seemed untouchable. He controlled the media. He controlled the police. He controlled the Attorney General's office. He had money, stolen money, yes, but money nonetheless, to fund campaigns, to buy loyalty, to silence critics. But in May 2018, something unprecedented happens. Malaysia holds elections, and Najib loses. Think about that. A prime minister, in power for nearly a decade, with all the advantages of incumbency, with control of state resources, loses to a coalition led by a 92-year-old former prime minister who came out of retirement specifically to oppose him. The Malaysian people spoke. They said, enough. They said, we know something is wrong. They said, we want our country back. The day after the election, the new government moves quickly. Police raid Najib's residence. They find cash, bags and bags of cash, jewelry, luxury goods. The images broadcast on television are surreal. Police officers carrying boxes and boxes of items out of the house. The count takes days. They find $273 million worth of jewelry, handbags, and luxury goods. Cash in multiple currencies totaling about $28 million in his house, just sitting there, like a dragon's hoard in a fairy tale. Najib is arrested. The man who was Prime Minister of Malaysia, who wielded absolute power, who thought himself above the law, is led away in handcuffs. The trial begins in 2019. It's meticulous, methodical. The prosecution presents mountains of evidence, bank statements, text messages, testimony from witnesses. They show how money flowed from 1MDB into accounts controlled by Najib, how it was used for personal expenses, how the amounts were staggering, unthinkable, grotesque. Najib maintains his innocence. His lawyers argue that he was misled, that he trusted his advisors, that he didn't know where the money came from. He presents himself as a victim, a well-meaning leader betrayed by those around him. But the evidence is overwhelming, damning, inescapable. In July 2020, Najib is convicted on 7 counts of corruption, money laundering, and abuse of power. He's sentenced to 12 years in prison and fined $50 million. A former prime minister, in prison, for stealing from his own people. The courtroom is silent when the verdict is read. You can hear breathing, the scratch of pens on paper, the weight of justice, delayed, but finally delivered. Outside, crowds gather. Some cheer, some weep, some just stand there trying to process what this moment means for their country. But where is Jho Low? That's the question that haunts every investigator, every journalist, every Malaysian who lost something to his theft. Where is the man who started it all, the phantom, the ghost, the architect of this entire catastrophe? The last confirmed sighting was in 2018, in Macau. Since then, he's vanished like smoke, like he was never there at all. Rumors swirl. He's in China, protected by powerful friends. He's in Dubai, living under an assumed name. He's had plastic surgery. He's grown a beard. He's lost weight. He's traveling on false passports. He's moving between countries that don't extradite to the United States or Malaysia. Every few months, there's a report. Someone thinks they saw him in a casino, in a restaurant, getting into a car. But by the time authorities investigate, he's gone. It's maddening, infuriating. This man stole $4.5 billion, not from a bank, not from a corporation, but from an entire nation. And he's free, walking around, breathing, sleeping in comfortable beds, eating good food. How is this possible? How does someone steal billions and just disappear? The answer is money. The money he hasn't spent yet. The money he hid before anyone was looking. Money buys a lot of things. Fake identities, corrupt officials willing to look the other way, safe houses, protection. Money buys freedom when you have enough of it. But there's something else happening too. Something more insidious. Low is reportedly working on a deal. His lawyers have been in contact with the Department of Justice. The terms being discussed: return some of the money, cooperate with investigations, provide testimony against others involved in the scheme. In exchange, maybe he doesn't go to prison. Maybe he gets a reduced sentence. Maybe he gets to keep some fraction of what he stole. Think about that. Really think about it. A man steals billions, ruins lives, corrupts governments, undermines democracy, and his punishment might be giving back some of the money and facing reduced consequences. Is this justice? Or is this just the way the world works when you steal enough money? When the theft is so massive that recovering even part of it becomes more important than punishment? These are uncomfortable questions. They don't have easy answers, but they need to be asked. Meanwhile, the bankers who helped him are facing their own reckonings. Tim Leissner, the Goldman Sachs banker, pleaded guilty in 2018. He admitted to conspiring to launder money and violate foreign bribery laws. He's cooperating with prosecutors, providing testimony against others. His life as he knew it is over. His reputation destroyed. His career finished. His freedom uncertain. He went from being a respected banker to a convicted felon. Roger Ng was arrested and extradited to the United States. His trial began in 2022. The prosecution painted him as a willing participant in the scheme, someone who knew exactly what he was doing, who took bribes and helped facilitate the theft. His defense argued he was a smaller player, following orders, unaware of the full scope of the fraud. In April 2022, he was found guilty, convicted of conspiracy to commit money laundering and violating foreign bribery laws. He faces up to 30 years in prison. Goldman Sachs itself reached a settlement with the U.S. government in 2020, agreeing to pay $2.9 billion in penalties. The bank also paid $3.9 billion to the Malaysian government, nearly $7 billion in fines and restitution. That's what helping Jho Low cost them. That's the price of looking the other way, of chasing fees so large that they blinded you to the obvious red flags, of choosing profit over principle. But here's the thing about Goldman Sachs. Here's what keeps you up at night if you think about it too hard. They survived. They're still operating, still doing deals, still making money. The fine was massive, yes, but it didn't destroy them. They absorbed it. They moved on. Because in the world of high finance, nothing is truly unforgivable if you're big enough, if you're important enough, if you're too interconnected to fail. Individual bankers go to prison. Individual politicians fall from power. But the system? The system that made all this possible? The system of offshore accounts and shell companies and jurisdictions that don't ask questions? The system that allows money to move across borders with minimal oversight? That system is still there, still functioning, still ready for the next Jho Low, the next 1MDB, the next colossal theft disguised as legitimate business. Malaysia is trying to recover, trying to heal, trying to piece together what's left of 1MDB and figure out where all the money went. The new government has recovered billions through asset seizures, through settlements with banks, through patient investigation. But it's not enough. It will never be enough. Because some of the money is simply gone, spent on things that can't be recovered, lost in the labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts. Think about what $4.5 billion could have done. It could have built 450 schools, good schools, with libraries and computer labs and sports facilities. It could have built 90 hospitals, modern hospitals with the latest equipment, with enough doctors and nurses, with beds for people who need them. It could have paved thousands of miles of roads in rural areas, connecting villages that have been isolated for generations. It could have funded scholarships for tens of thousands of students, giving them opportunities they never would have had otherwise. It could have transformed lives, lifted families out of poverty, given children futures they could only dream about. Instead, it bought yachts and paintings and champagne and parties that no one remembers clearly because everyone was too drunk to form coherent memories. The waste of it. The obscene, grotesque, unforgivable waste of it. And the Malaysian people? They're left with the bill, with the debt that 1MDB accumulated, with the damaged reputation of their country, with the knowledge that their own leaders betrayed them. But here's what's remarkable. Here's what gives you hope if you're looking for hope in this story. They fought back. The journalists who wouldn't stop reporting despite threats. The activists who kept demanding answers. The ordinary citizens who voted for change despite pressure and intimidation. The investigators who spent years building cases, following money trails, connecting dots. They didn't accept it. They didn't shrug and say, "That's just how things are." They said no. They said this is wrong. They said someone needs to pay. And someone did pay. Not everyone. Not enough. But someone. That matters. That counts. That's important. Because the alternative is despair. The alternative is accepting that the powerful can do whatever they want without consequences. The alternative is giving up on the idea that justice means anything at all. So what do we learn from the story of Jho Low? That evil doesn't always look like evil? That monsters don't always have fangs and claws? That sometimes they wear thick-rimmed glasses and throw great parties and know how to make people feel important? Or maybe the lesson is simpler. Maybe it's about all of us. Low couldn't have done this alone. He needed bankers willing to bend rules. He needed lawyers willing to create shell companies. He needed accountants willing to massage numbers. He needed government officials willing to look the other way. He needed celebrities willing to accept gifts without asking questions. He needed ordinary people at banks and compliance departments willing to approve suspicious transactions because the fees were too good to pass up. He needed a system that values money above truth, that treats wealth as its own form of legitimacy, that doesn't ask uncomfortable questions because the answers might require uncomfortable actions. We built that system, all of us, through our choices, through our silence, through our willingness to believe that if someone is rich, they must have earned it somehow. Jho Low didn't create that system. He just understood it better than most. He was a symptom, not the disease. And until we address the disease, until we demand transparency in financial systems, until we close tax havens and regulate shell companies, until we hold banks accountable for more than just fines, there will be another Jho Low. Maybe not next year, maybe not in Malaysia. But somewhere, someone is looking at a sovereign wealth fund, and they're thinking, I wonder if I could. Because the truth about human nature, the uncomfortable truth we don't like to acknowledge, is that most people have a price. Most people will compromise their principles if the number is big enough. We want to believe we're different. We want to believe we'd be the whistleblower, the hero, the person who says no. But would we? Really? This is the real terror of the Jho Low story. Not that one man stole billions, but that thousands of people helped him, either actively or through their silence. That a whole ecosystem of enablers made it possible. And that ecosystem still exists. Somewhere tonight, in an office building in Singapore or New York or London, someone is approving a suspicious transaction. Somewhere, a compliance officer is clicking "Approve" on a form they haven't read carefully. Somewhere, a banker is convincing themselves that the red flags aren't really that red. So we come back to where we started. To a nightclub in Las Vegas. To 23 bottles of Cristal appearing at Lindsay Lohan's table. To a young man in thick-rimmed glasses who doesn't look like he should be there. But now you know the truth. Now you understand. That wasn't magic. That wasn't mystery. That wasn't the inexplicable wealth of a financial genius. That was theft. Plain and simple. Theft on a scale so massive that it becomes hard to comprehend. Theft that stole not just money but futures. Not just wealth but possibilities. Not just billions, but the dreams of millions. And Jho Low? The man who orchestrated it all? He's still out there. Somewhere. Hiding. Running. Looking over his shoulder. Living with the knowledge that he can never really come home. Never really be free. Never really rest. Is that punishment enough? Is that justice? I don't know. But I know this. His name will be remembered. Not as a titan of finance, but as a cautionary tale, as a symbol of greed and corruption, as the billion-dollar whale who almost got away with it. Almost. The story isn't over. Low is still free. Some money is still missing. Justice is still incomplete. But the truth is out. The light has been shined into the darkness. Either way, remember this story. Remember Jho Low. Remember the nightclub, the champagne, the parties, the yacht, the paintings, the movies. Remember what it all really was. Stolen dreams, wrapped in luxury. A nation's future, sold for champagne and applause. The most expensive magic trick in history. And for his final act, Jho Low disappeared. But the damage he left behind? That's permanent. That's forever. That's his real legacy. The end. Or is it?